The whole point is to make new teachers who do fully understand these dynamics so that we can cause a chorus of resounding truth throughout the earth.
Hoo-wee! Welcome to another episode of the Great Work Launchpad. My name is Chris Nelson. My site is evolvedconsciousness.org, and today is March 11th, 2026. This is the Great Work Launchpad, episode 45, Shadow Work 43, Fear or Love 28, Fear of Sacrifice 6. Join us in this ongoing quest to delve deep into the human psyche and evolve our consciousness to greater heights and greater potentials. What's next? Right. If you need to learn, well, first of all, the Great Work Launchpad. What's this about? All right, what are we doing here? Well, get launched. Take in the truth, be activated in the force propensity and fundamental aspect of love within you to motivate you to create freedom. That's what we're trying to do. Trying to get people ignited into this work and to help you along that way. You can go to How to Become the True Media and get help in learning those skills, or learn them on your own. Either way, the point is to learn them so you can get involved. Can't join this year, but you can join in 2027. So you can go there, check that out, or take a look at this image, learn all those things there and those bullet points all by yourself. And then you'll be on your way to being ignited like this. All right, I guess that's it for that. And forgot to do my setup here. But we got the usual co-host, Brandon Spencer, joining us. How you doing, Brandon?
Hey, I'm doing well. How about you?
All right. Where's my file? There we go. Yeah, so last week, I think it was titled Changing the Condition. But what did we talk about? Well, changing the condition, that's why I called it that. We started off talking about that and meeting the requirements of true freedom. Applying justice to injustices, serving that entropic force of love. Syntropic force of love and order and good and morality. And people focusing on the minutiae of effects, not really getting down to the causal factors. I harped on that in the previous episode too, about running from responsibility. And this one, well, my first thing I'll talk about is related to this choir, or this chorus of truth, and that's why I added I think one of the audios that I ended last episode with, I started with it from Mark Passio talking about, joining that, being part of creating a resounding chorus of truth to reverberate across the universe and change the frequency and change our reality, not in some woo-woo way, but based on our behaviors, because our behaviors come from what we think and want and desire to do. So gotta change those frequencies coming into us, take in quality truth, and then care about the quality truth, live it, act on it, teach it, rinse, repeat, snowball grows, and then we can get true freedom. So regarding this choir of truth, so I called the episode Silence in the Choir of Truth. So we're trying to create a more resounding chorus, make the choir larger, and it's a little too silent, relative. We look at 8 billion people, maybe somewhere around there on the planet, and how many are in the choir. And you can even look at, within the choir you got Some people focus on the effects, which is a lower level. It's necessary to get people to understand the problem. And then you got people really amplifying the truth from a root causal level. And those are fewer, but they have like a louder voice. But even all of us together, it's still very quiet because we don't have enough people. You can put the choir of truth beside everyone else in the world, and everyone else, what they're talking about is going to drown out whatever we're talking about because they're just so much more in numbers. So it's very silent here in this choir. We don't have a silent room to do our singing in, so we can't be heard very, very well. It's almost as if just our lips are moving and nothing's coming out. To everyone else, that's all they see is just a bunch of people talking nonsense, talking shit that I don't need to care about that. I don't need to pay any attention to that. So, people claim to understand freedom and rights and right from wrong and morality. So that could be people who are even doing some aspect of the great work, talking about a truth that can help to change consciousness towards the better. They can think they have these things understood. And certainly a lot of people in the regular world would think that they know and understand what freedom is and what rights are, what right from wrong is, what morality is. I know you could even have some that are moral relativists or solipsistic and would deny these things are even qualities or states or aspects of reality that can be understood or that can be obtained. Like freedom can't be obtained. Rights are just imaginary inventions from humans, and right from wrong and morality, well, that's nonsense. We just make it up too. But for people who do think those things are real but don't actually understand it, they're just making claims. Like, oh yeah, I know what freedom is. I know what my rights are. I know right from wrong. They're making claims. It's not a true understanding. They don't understand it deeply enough. And that's why we can come back to people who are, in the truth and freedom movement. They can claim to understand these things, but how well do they actually understand it? Maybe they like the idea that's sold about it. And the word, maybe the colloquial meanings around it. But they don't have a deep, definitive knowledge. They don't understand it deeply enough. And even those who understand what the term means, like you go to a dictionary, freedom, dictionary, rights, dictionary, morality, you can understand like what the terms mean at like a definition capacity or even go into the etymology. But how deeply do you comprehend the concept behind those words, behind that whole definition? So that's the depth that you can get into a concept that you're not going to get just from a dictionary or from an etymology. You have to cross-correlate and correspond other aspects of reality and a comparison of similarity and difference to see how they relate. So when we look at people's behavior, what are they doing? How deeply do they understand these things? How deeply do they understand them to the point where they care enough about them to try to uphold them, try to restore the dignity of these states or conditions or these inherent birthrights that we have? So you look at what they're doing, and they aren't involved in the fight for freedom, like the most people out there who might say, yes, they want freedom and they want rights. They're a supporter of rights and they think themselves moral. Well, they aren't really involved in fighting for freedom or for rights or right over wrong or morality or what's truly good. And a lot of people, or even most people who know these terms and understand it conceptually, like they could have gone through any of our work and Passio's work or other people's work, and they can understand it conceptually, and they get it maybe fairly deeply, maybe not as deeply as they could understand it, but they understand it, fairly well. Yet they aren't driven to act. They are staying silent. Hence why I term this the silence in the chorus of truth. Because they could think of themselves as like part of the advocating for truth and freedom, and maybe like this analogy of the choir and the chorus of truth, they would think themselves as part of it, but they're not actually part of it, because they're not acting to bring those things into manifestation. Like, we are in a degree of enslavement, and that means we don't have our freedoms and we are having our rights denied. Yet they're not driven to act to make those things manifest in the potential that they should be manifested, what ought to be our way of life. They're staying silent, and by that silence they are partaking in a level of complicity. They aren't helping to make the voice of truth stronger, to give truth a stronger presence in the world of whatever medium that the truth can be propagated by. And, the strongest ones are speech, and so either verbal speech or written speech. That's the way you can actually convey meanings profoundly and deeply, and get an understanding and a comprehension really be grasped. But there's other media, but the point is they're not giving truth a stronger presence in the world of media that can influence others, because the media is what's going to influence others. That's what's going to have the potential to reach people in the age of communications that we're in, with the internet, all the forms of media. And I've gone into this complicity in my morality presentation, Natural Law, the Science of Morality, Part 4, Morality. The complicity, there's two levels. One is direct complicity, where you're actively, like, say you're robbing a bank and you're there robbing the bank, so you're all complicit, all of you who are robbing the bank, the person who got the plans and set it up, and the driver, everyone's in on it. And then you got people who are, so complicity comes from the concept of weaving, calm, plicit, and the plicit is to weave and the calm is together. So you're weaving together. So people are weaving together. You're weaving something into creation. You're creating something. When you're weaving something, you're creating something. You're taking fabric and you're weaving it and you're creating clothes or something. So you're weaving it together. So people are weaving. It goes along with the concept of conspiracy, where you're breathing together. So if you're complicit, you're conspiring as well, because you're breathing together for the same goal and you're weaving together to create this thing, this ends that you're trying to achieve. So in that example, it was robbing a bank. We're trying to achieve the goal of robbing a bank, and here we are, we're complicit in that goal. And then there's another level. That's the active complicity. And I defined passive complicity, where you're still helping to weave that goal, even if you don't even know that you're helping to weave that goal. And that's where this involutionary stagnation, at the minimum stagnation, force of involution, syntropy, and fear, this force of fear, this propensity of fear, this fundamental of fear that is within us, that is representative of what is in us internally, as demonstrated by our behavior externally. The behavior is a reflection of the internal domain. So this passive complicity is where, by doing nothing, you're letting the world continue to be weaved in the way that it currently is, in the way that's currently being driven. So that is a world of continuing to allow immorality, or even greater degrees of immorality. And that's the passive complicity, where by your silence, you're in that passive level of complicity, and you're not helping to give truth a stronger presence to combat the falsity. You're not trying to end evil, to end immorality, to end our enslavement. So this silence is cowardice. Being silent is cowardice. Hence, again, playing into that force of fear. You have not developed the courage because you have not cared enough. Because that care is what will get you to the courage to overcome it. And what's interesting about courage is etymologically it's tied to core. Because what's at the core of us? This is why the heart is looked at as like the seat of the soul and all this, because you look at the center of something and that's where you're going to say the essence is. So when you look at a human being, the heart is at the core, almost, pretty much in the center, left to right and top to down. It's a little bit more up, but it's in the center. So that's why there's this idea, not that it necessarily is that, but it's a symbolic correspondence of the way the human anatomy is constructed and what's at the core. And that's the core is where you get in French car, and car is heart. So the core is the heart. And also courage, courage, le car, it's the same root. So courage comes from care. You need care to develop the courage. And care, what are we talking about? For, what is this, 26 now I said? The 26th fear or love talk? Well, that's what we're talking about, is trying to awaken the care. That's what the heart is. That's what the fire is in that spaceship of doing the great work. Is that's the care that is going to ignite you. And you can have, yes, righteous anger that can help, but you have to care. That's why you're going to have righteous anger, is you're going to care about the injustice, and then you're going to try to be a part of justice. And that's that true care. That's that agape love, this force within you. When your behavior is expressing that expression of behavior is a reflection of that internal state of true care, of agape love, this higher love, this care beyond just yourself and what you can get for you out of your own life until you die. I'll pass it to you, Brandon, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah. When people aren't using their voice to get involved in the choir of truth, then that extends the external noise that's going on all around us in our health environment. What's going on, Derek? It's crazy because you were just talking about care and courage, and I know how Derek has brought that up, before, and etymology of where that word comes from. But how you was talking about, individuals who claim they know what freedom is and claim to know, how it's, how right, but they lack the definitive knowledge. And then also too, not just, understanding this stuff from just uh a definition and a etymology, is diving deeper and understanding it from a symbolic, you know, how understanding too, and going back to the myths and seeing, what they were talking about, so we can compare and contrast these things to get a better, deeper, understanding. And then too, you brought up the whole idea of weaving, threading, that also was talked about a lot, like in myths, and like how it, like how there is this universal thread. But when you look at our actions and our behaviors that we put into reality, our actions and behaviors are always weaving and threading with other people's action and behaviors. And then that creates, all kinds of, effects. And that's why we have sayings like, hey, how you pulling my strings, because you're saying like, hey, I'm about to hit that boiling point because you're doing something that's irritating me and I'm going to respond. And then we just look at threads in and of itself. Another word for a thread was like a chord. So you're talking about like musical instruments and playing tunes. So like all of this is not just symbolic, but when you look at the language too and what it means, it's all kind of tied together, getting back to our actions and our behaviors. Because what is a thread is to put something carefully through the needle, the eye of the needle, and that's our actions, that penetrate, into other people's, her reality, whether it's good or bad. Then all of our actions are in this co-creative, state, and that's what threads and creates things. How that was talked about in all of the myths and all, you know, yeah, of these legends. So you can see this weaving, in reality. You can see it in society because we're always integrating with others, because we have to share this planet not just with other humans but with other life forms. So again, getting back to our behaviors, getting back to how we think, getting back to right action and care, because you have to care enough to weave in the right and correct moral behaviors, so your actions aren't penetrating into other people's co-creative how world in a negative, how wrong, how type of how behavior. So, again, um, beautifully said. And then too, like when you kind of understand it and not just look at it from like a definition and etymology, go into it like the green language and the symbolism and the myths, and you can see and get that better understanding of what we're talking about. And I think that right there is going to give you a better depth of knowledge and understanding, because you're kind of going further and further, like just like with my yacht, how we talked about how people, don't understand the moral teachings, how about that. It was a way of living. It wasn't just about, worship or, following what the 42 positive confessions, of my yacht. It was a way of living, being in the world, taking in the correct knowledge, and then understanding truth, then aligning to that. Because hell, again, it's all about alignment. What are you aligning with? Are you aligning with the fear, or are you aligning with the agape love?
Hey, Derek, are you there? Can you speak or?
Yeah, I can. If I don't crash while driving and press the unmute and all that stuff and get my phone connected. Sorry, y'all. Uh, Man, I miss y'all. Brandon, well said, brother. Yeah, keeping it light as a feather. Word to Brendan Spencer. Fuck yeah. And yeah, Chris, I love the little, like, where's the choir? Where's the concerto to be, singing the hymns of the songs of the universe?
Looks like we lost him.
Yeah.
Not too reliable driving, yeah, and trying to keep that Wi-Fi signal alive there.
Yeah.
Wireless. Oh, well. Well, it's good to have him pop in for a bit. I guess he's on the West Coast because it was very sunny there.
Yeah.
Not in France because it'd be pitch black there right now.
Yeah. He uses France in his light. Oh, he's back.
Oh, shit. Did I cut out for a second?
Yeah, like 15 seconds, something like that there. You were talking, you made comments on the choir.
Yeah. And just how the funnel conference was, a glimpse of that. If we can get more people in unison, and yeah, Chris, you weren't there this time around, yet you're still part of that funnel family. You were there last time, to inspire true care towards action, right? And so, what is action? Yeah, it's first and foremost, we're speaking before we're going to be doing physical action, reaction, response, whatever. Especially if one's like a warrior and they're going to use their mental sword before drawing their physical sword, or whatever means of self-defense weapons that are available in one's arsenal at the time, right? So yeah, just to finish off and pass it back to you, Chris. I don't know if you saw my presentation, but it harkens into the whole sound, song, frequency, manifestation, creation. Are we singing in accordance of the proper songs of the universe, as Brendan was saying and alluding to, right? So yeah, I just love how Lord of the Rings just, brings about many things that can correspond and relate to, and we can apply with. And I'm not going to say allegory because Tolkien wasn't a fan, but you know the deal, my man. But yeah.
So what's up with allegory? Tolkien wasn't a fan of allegory, even though he made an allegory. What? Okay, all right. Weird guy. It's like, I'm gonna make an allegory, but I don't like allegories. Well, good
Yeah,
job,
right.
guy.
Yeah, you got to see that interview, right? Yeah, yeah. I mean, like applicability in allegory is kind of like the same breath. If one is going to be seeing something for way beyond the entertainment value of the intention of some of these stories and all this stuff, and I said it, in a live stream before that, it's almost unavoidable to, not have allegories to something so profound as the legendarian and Tolkien. Yeah, that's all I want to say. Yeah, thanks, brother. Shit, I got the sun setting in the west. That's correct. Yeah, sorry.
Don't go to the land of the dead, man. Stay away. You got to go to the east.
Yeah.
Go to the land of the reeds, the afterlife. Yeah, like everything. I'll just briefly touch on that. Like everything's an allegory. In like English class when you learn like reading and stuff, you learn about it. I don't remember. They must use the word allegory, but they like talk about this. You can interpret whatever the story is, and even if the author didn't even intend it to correlate to something else, when you're the reader, you can identify different elements within it, and you can correlate it, and then you can create an allegory to something else. It's not the author's intention, and they could have intended to write it as a certain theme or a certain correspondence to something. But since many things can correspond to many other things, when you read it, you can totally identify some other aspect that can, bring like that, I guess, a light and like a vigor where you're like, wow, this is like relating to this, and you like light up because you're making these connections, and it's like kind of euphoric and exciting to see these correlations to these other things. And yeah, my favorite's The Matrix. That movie is just unbelievable. Best movie ever made. I don't think there'll ever be a movie that'll be as awesome as that. But that's my personal favorite movie ever made. Yeah. So we were talking about silence is cowardice. All right. So regarding being silent and not being activated in influencing others, you can put some time of your life to be involved in that effort in some way. And if you're saying that you can't, that your life does not have any room to do any aspect of this, or to get yourself to any aspect of this, whether it's helping someone else with their production or something as your journey along that path, or learning the skills to do it yourself, you're just lying to yourself that you can't put any effort towards that involvement or increasing your involvement if you're at a low level and not doing anything yourself personally. If you're asked the question, what are you doing to restore freedom? That's how I would phrase it, to restore. Or you could say, what are you doing to create true freedom? And if your answer to that is silence, crickets, the proverbial crickets. I can't do the cricket sound there, but the cricket sound. So if it's silence and that's all you got to say, or you're trying to find something to say where you got nothing, then you aren't doing anything. And you have to be honest with yourself and realize that that isn't good enough. To be doing nothing about it isn't good enough, because you can involve yourself in some capacity. Everyone's got lives. Everyone's busy with whatever they're doing. but you can take some time to invest in something to get you along there. So one of the the first part is you got to have the knowledge. If you don't have the knowledge, well, how are you going to teach about it? How are you going to talk about it? How are you going to do anything to advance this understanding in other people? So you have to gain the knowledge. So this is what I've talked about before. You put all of Mark Passio's podcasts on your phone and you put it in a playlist. And every time you go do something, you go up to the bathroom. You take your phone with you, you press play. And then you come back to whatever you're doing, you press pause. Oh, I'm going to go to the kitchen to make food. Press play. And when you're done, press pause. And do whatever you were doing that requires more of your attention. You go in the shower. You bring it with you, you press play. And then when you're done, you press pause. So if you do that just in a day, you could at least get through, like I'm saying, a half hour, probably an hour of content. And then over the year, you could probably get through all the podcasts. Just make me seem like, maybe I shouldn't say it. I'm on my 9th round of Passio's content. I've gone through it 9 times. I'm on my 9th time. Because that's what I do. I get up, I play it, I come back. So obviously I get less out of it than the previous times and all the first few times. But every now and then I'm like, it triggers something and I correspond it to something else. And I'm like, yeah, here's a new insight I have. And then I write it down and it helps in my content for my presentations that I'm working on, like now, the Law of Freedom or whatever. It's a note for the future on something else to talk about. And that's how, we've talked about it before, that this is how you can get better at getting involved in actually doing the great work, is you have to take these notes. Not everyone is like a supercomputer with memory like I think Mark Passio is. He has like a really good recall. I'm not as good as that, and I'm sure most of us here are not. We take notes. We write things down because that's how you're going to remember things, is you write things down and then you can remember what you wrote down. And don't think that you don't need to write it down, because trust me, you do. Because then you're going to be like, sometimes I'm like, I got to write this down. And then I forget because I'm like doing something with my kids. And then I'm like, later that day or the next day, I'm like, shit, what was that thing that I was like, I needed to write down? And now I don't even remember what it is. And so you got to write them down because you're probably not going to remember. You might be able to remember, but that's like a roulette of take your chance with it. So you got to write it down. And this is why you can take some time to get started, even if you're like, shit, I don't know enough. How am I ever, I know I want to be part of creating true freedom on earth. I want to be part of restoring true freedom on this planet and ending evil, ending slavery, ending immorality. Oh, I can't get there. How am I going to do that if I don't even know what to say? So you got learning to do. That's part of the shadow work, is that knowledge you got to take in so you can work on yourself. And that's one way to do it, is every time you have time that's not requiring your focus and your attention on something that you have to do, you can put that on. It can be anyone's content. I'm just saying Mark Passio because that's what I've found is the most valuable out of all the content, amalgamated, aggregated into one place by one person talking about it. So you can put someone's content and learn from it and just go like that, and you can get a half hour each day. That's 3.5 hours a week. We're saying very conservatively, you could probably do more than just a half hour. So that's like 3.5 hours times 52. That's like over 160 hours or something a year. Okay, you're not going to get through all of Passio's content, but maybe you'll get through a quarter or something, or a half, and you can invest yourself more into learning whatever content that you're trying to learn about that has these quality truths in it, and then you can take that in, and then you'll be able to put it back out. But if you don't take it in first, or if you're just going to try to figure out the mysteries of the universe and all these eternal truths on your own, well, Maybe you can. Good luck. It would probably take you several lifetimes. That's why we're built upon the lifetimes. We stand upon the shoulders of the lifetimes of others before us so that we can see from a higher perspective, because we're building upon those that came before us when we get access to what they wrote about, and when we can understand what they're talking about and maybe verify it. So you can stop lying to yourself about not being able to do anything or even to start, because probably anyone who hasn't started probably does need to take in more to understand it better. And that's one of the ways you can just start even half-assed. Is the best way to learn is to teach, because that's when you're going to force yourself to go into something more deeply, force yourself to try to explain it, and you're going to see your own limitations and your own failures of knowledge, and you're going to see how you were lacking understanding of things, even though you thought you understood it. You're like, oh yeah, I understand this, and then you're going to try to talk about it, and you're like, oh shit, I don't really understand this at all. Okay, let me dive deeper and write about it. You can write essays or talk about the subject, and that'll get you to understand it more. So when you're not doing anything, and that's not good enough, there's an internal contradiction, opposition between what you know and understand is true about what needs to be done versus what you're actually doing. So you could have a bunch of people, Passio's raged at them in the past 2 years of his podcast, where it's people who go through his material and they keep coming back and they're not putting anything out. And they've heard all of his stuff. They probably understand, what's true about what needs to be done, the requirements to create true freedom is moral education. They understand it probably. Maybe some of them are stubborn and refuse it, and they're just there for the kicks and entertainment and infotainment. But some of them do understand it. But what are they doing? So there's this contradiction. Their internal consciousness, they're not in unity consciousness, because their thoughts, their emotions, and their actions are not in congruence. They're not integrated. They're in opposition and contradiction, because they know something to be true and they can care about it, or to a large enough extent, but not enough to activate them, to join them in that triumvirate, that trinity, where they are going to actually fulfill those requirements. They're going to do something where they know what they need to do, and then they're going to actually do it. So a lot of people are stuck in not actually doing it, even though they know. So that's that contradiction, that opposition, that satanic state within them. That's the ego, Satanism as egotism. And that's where they're holding themselves back because of these limiting fear factors, this force of fear, this aspect of fear within them that's keeping them from going forward, from getting activated. Because Shaitan, Satan, is the opposer, and it's the opposer within. And they have that force within which is still holding them back, even though they know what they need to do, and they care about it to a certain extent, but they don't care about it enough. And that, if they can grow that care and develop more care about it, that can overcome their ego, their attachment to something, or this limiting belief, this fear factor that's holding them back. Pass it back to you, Brandon.
Damn, man, you've listened to Hapassio's podcast 9 times.
I'm on my ninth time. Yeah. I think I don't think anyone else has done that.
Nah. I may hold the record for seeing his natural law seminar, because I think I met like 25 times.
No, but I haven't done that. No.
Yeah, the podcast. Yeah, that's even longer. I mean, that's a harder feat, because that's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours. But yeah, that's how how I started, is taking in the information. Like once I realized, like damn, Passio is saying some shit that I haven't heard from anybody else. I knew it was the most quality, or I should say quality is the most dankest, highest quality of knowledge I had ever came across. literally just straight like the dankest as a knowledge, and you know what that word means. But yeah, I started to download those podcasts, put them on my phone. When I was in the kitchen, I would have them playing. Hell, when I was freaking in the shower, freaking on the toilet, freaking had that shit playing. When I was going to work, I had that shit playing. Hell, when I was on break between games in the umpire room, had that shit blasting in the umpire room. So yeah, because I wanted to take in that knowledge. So that's how individuals can learn and take in that quality truth. Because like you say, you're never ever going to get to that last step of teaching, of being a more educator, of using your voice, if you don't have other knowledge. So at bare minimum, that's something that they can do. I mean, because you can do that freaking each day. And some of his some of his podcasts in earlier stages were only like 1 hour, some like 2 hours. But you can do one podcast a day. How that can be easily done. You know what? No one is that busy where they can't listen to a podcast within a day. Because most people just bullshit. You have to go to the kitchen. Fix your food. Freaking downtime. Like, hey, you can find 1 hour. You can sacrifice sleep. But yeah, that's how you can start to take in that knowledge. And that's just the basic, health first steps. And, even the individuals who are not actively out there teaching, you know, funnel just pass. You can reach out to organizers, hey, can I create slides? Hey, can I create um, you know, um ads, hey, can I create some B-roll, create something, hey, how can I help, how can I promote. There's so many things you can do. Hell, if you are financially gifted, hell, you can donate. How many people say, hey, I might not be ready to be a teacher, but I will help assist those who are teaching, because there is a level of technology that for has to be paid for to do this to a certain degree. You don't have to get the most expensive stuff, but at least you can assist. And there's many things you can do help behind the scenes, that can help you build that confidence, to help you start off in a baby steps so you can start to grow. So then maybe after hell, a couple of months, hell, maybe after 1 year, how you can start to help be that teacher, because you're still taking in that knowledge. And then too, hell, you can learn something in that process and grow on the individual level. But that's still something that is assisting and helping, as far as, trying to use, how your voice as that stepping stone, because some people aren't going to be able to just, start doing it. Well, start off small, like we all say, you don't have to take that big giant leap. You can start off small, then, and, keep growing, 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 growing. And then with time, then you can start to, teach and do it in whatever way, shape, form, that you want. But damn, yeah, 9 times, man, yeah. Hell, I need to go back and listen to his podcast for a third time. He'll probably do that soon.
Got anything to add, Derek?
Yeah. Sorry if I cut out. I'm gonna hit some mountains on the way to the California-Arizona border. But not to come up shorter on what you guys are talking about. Yeah, and I have actually come up shorter on getting through the whole series of podcasts that Mark has. Um, but what I wanted to helps me.
I guess the mountains. You're right there.
Yeah, the mountains. Yeah, the mountains got a little bit closer than he.
Yeah,
Yeah, they were a little closer than he thought.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. So even after you take in that knowledge, we're talking about, I was saying bare minimum a half hour a day, but with all the things you do, if you drive to work, there's like easily another half hour. You can up it to an hour, and that's not even You're not even trying to like dedicate time to it. And after you take it all in, then you can take whatever time and like try to formalize it yourself and put it out somewhere, make a blog, just try to get into it in some way. And hey, Derek, you want to try again? We'll see if you cut out. I'll give you another chance there.
Yeah, I suppose. I'm really sorry, and honestly, I was, when I realized I got cut off, what I was saying, like the best way to view content is from your computers, and I take screenshots a lot of the time, like especially like if you're doing stuff and you can't like take the time to like write notes or whatever, especially like if you're cooking or whatever. Take screenshots, revisit them, and get the notes or whatever sound samples you're looking to do, like you did for this intro, which is cool. And yeah, so in regards to the topic of discussion under your title, like I feel like what really helps me and what I've realized in reflection of pre-awakened state really was that one really needs to speak from the heart to let the soul be free. And when you're really, activated in that alignment with that sound song frequency, which could be considered, the manifestation creation or the word in regards to cosmic law, just like the codes of creation.
Damn.
When you're blind to that,
it sucks.
It's so amazing what you can do and what you can find with.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. He was on a roll.
Literally and figuratively on a roll.
Rolling in the car and rolling with the words. As I'll continue with where I was at. So we got all these excuses that people make for not aligning their actions with what they say they want or what they know is right and what they care about wanting to have manifest in the world. And why is that? So there's plenty of things they're doing in their daily life that they're doing it. And they're doing it because they want something. So there's things that they want, and they care about the things that they want. And then they're acting in alignment to try to get the things that they want. So why are they not doing that for the things that they know is right? The things that are related to restoring true freedom, to actually being free, to getting rid of our enslavement by everyone becoming more moral, because that's the only way it's going to happen. Government ain't going anywhere. Nothing's going to change until people are ready to be more responsible for themselves, responsible for their actions. And that requires morality to be understood and wanting that burden, that responsibility for their actions, and finding a different way of living than the comfortable slavery and control. So the reason they make up these excuses and they're not doing it, they're not acting in what they know is right, but they're acting in other ways for other things they care about, but they just don't care about what's right enough. The rightness, the goodness, the morality, the truth of creating a more moral world. That is because they are selfish. That's what it comes down to. Hence, talking about the opposer, Satan within, it's because they are selfish. That's what Satanism is at a base level. It's egotism. And it's different levels of egotism. We've talked about them before. The base level is just, it's all about you, your survival, my truth, my survival, my freedom. It's all about you. And then from there, you get moral relativism. Everything's relative. If it's good for you, it's bad for someone else, then it's fine. You're going to take it. You're going to try to climb those rungs of society social hierarchy, corporate hierarchy, whatever, dog eat dog, survival of the fittest nonsense, law of the jungle nonsense, and then that'll get you to social Darwinism I mentioned, and then eugenics. So this egotism is the selfishness that's within. This is this force of fear, this propensity of fear, this involutionary force that's keeping things entropic and chaotic as opposed to unfurling and evolving. It's keeping things held down. Fear is the restriction of consciousness, restricting us, restricting our potentials. So this selfishness keeps you restricted. It restricts you from your potential in moral self-actualization, and thereby keeps all of humanity restricted. And your part, your selfish self-restriction is part of that aggregate self-restriction. Because as if each person would become less selfish and be more focused on what is right, such as the great work to try to restore true freedom, then we could actually get there. So that's what it comes down to, is this selfishness. Whatever they're lacking and don't want to invest in developing, or lying to themselves to avoid that investment, they don't want to add more shit to their life. They don't want to add more shit to their plate, because it's all the things that they want to do for themselves. My life, my truth, my freedom, my survival. Short-term gains. And they're not looking at the bigger picture. They're not looking at the long-term gains beyond just for themselves, for everyone. So they're just keeping... That's that restriction of consciousness. See, it applies this, in this capacity too. This satanic, egoic, fear, syntropic, entropic, involutionary force, this propensity within them is a restriction of their consciousness, and it's also restricting what they can see and what they can benefit from, because they're just looking at it as closely to themselves as it relates to themselves, as opposed to evolving and expanding that care and compassion outwards. They want to live their lives without adding anything else to it. So they're like, well, I get up and I do this, and then 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 it's supper, and then I do this, and then I do this, and then I go to bed, and well, I don't have time to add anything else to my plate. My plate's full. I got my 2 hours of whatever TV, or used to be called TV, now it's like Netflix or streaming or whatever people want to refer to it as, and they're like, well, that's my downtime, and I'm not sacrificing that. That's my my escape from the rat race, from the stress of the prison planet, of the control system, of the way we currently are choosing to live our lives. So they don't want to add anything to it. So they're going to choose a delusional coping mechanism of escapism, as opposed to the real escape. The real way out is getting to the point where you can actually do moral education, or those peripherals, as I refer to them, like the shadow work, getting people to understand these aspects, the self-knowledge within themselves. And this is what people need to work on, is not being so selfish about, oh, well, I want this thing for me now, my bullshit escape, and they're not looking at the real escape, the real way out. And as we've talked about before, because a lot of the realization is like, oh yeah, well, I'm not even going to be able to escape in the true way anyways in my lifetime. That's something that can happen if I get involved. It's not going to be in my lifetime. It'll be like down the line, it'll be someone else who will benefit from it, but I won't benefit from it. So since I'm not going to benefit from it, and since I'm a selfish fucking prick that only cares about myself and my life and what I can get out of it, or what I can get for my children or those around me, then I'm not going to care about that future vision, that vision of humanity and where humanity can go and the potential humanity has. You're going to restrict yourself to yourself and your surroundings and limit yourself in that capacity. This is the force of fear that you're stuck in. And again, it's not fight, flight, or freeze fear. It's this force, this propensity that locks you in a modality of being that is preventing you from advancing the forward progress of humanity towards a more moral species. That's that fear. That's that entropic involution restricting that potential. So people do not want to sacrifice the time that they are putting on other things. That plate is full. They have their time for the shit that they don't want to do but got to do to get the thing they want, which is money, that other god they have in their life. So they want to get the money, so they're going to do the job that they don't like or something. And then they got the other stuff. They got their bullshit escapism, downtime, and they're not willing to get involved in something more meaningful, to have a higher purpose in their life, more meaning in their life, because they're stuck on this fear and this fear of sacrifice. Pass it to you, Brandon.
Are these individuals Nazis, or can they just not see, or are they,
Yes.
or are they not at sea? They're not in the universal flow of creation with this
not flown
satanic
in the current.
mindset. Yeah, Nazi.
That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah, oh, dude, yeah, the green language is, yeah, but yeah, the whole satanic mindset, the whole me, myself, and my family, my party, my group,
My
you
tribe.
know, yep, yep, we've got to, evolve, from this archaic way of thinking, because that's all, that it is restrictive, it's suppressive, and that's what puts that pressure, that squeezing, just like when, a predator, how constricts, that's what squeezes the breath out. That's what squeezes, her life out. That's what, squeezes out the energy, and it suffocates, so that mindset is toxic. It's deadly, and that's why, we've been, talking about it, and that mindset has been called, many things. But at the end of the day, it's just a mindset where you cannot see. That's simply what it is. You just cannot see. You think it's all about me, I, the ego, me, my. So,
Yeah, that vision is just restricted around you, and everything else is just, you could say it's in darkness, because you're not even interested in looking at that future. That's what future is. Something that doesn't exist yet. It's a potential.
yeah.
And it could be almost anything. And so you have to see, that's what the imagination is you have to see the potential that can be.
Yep.
And then you can reach for it and bring it into the present through your actions. And that's that potential. It's a potential out there. The future is a potential that we can actualize. And when it's actualized, it's because it's actual in the present, and that propagates forward, and each moment becomes the past. But it's a continuing chain of actualizations from going back far in the past, leading to the present now, going forward into the future, is that actualization of potential. And this potential is being restricted because of that vision that is only looking at this we're stuck in this satanic mindset where it's all about us and our family and our tribe, the in-group and the out-group. And you care about what's in the in-group, and you don't care about the out-group, because you don't have that wider care, that compassion, that agape force of love, that propensity within you that's driving you to act in ways that will actually bring humanity to greater potential outcomes in the future. And that's what I think it's wisdom. I did this in my earlier work when I was more into etymological breakdowns and weaving etymologies together into like a story and stuff. But I think I did one on related to vision and wisdom. I think it comes from Weir, Weir in Proto-Indo-European, if I'm not mistaken, and that relates to seeing. So that's what, if you're being wise, that has to do with your actions. It's not just what you have within you. If you're talking about things, then someone can recognize your wisdom because you're actually talking to them about things that are true. And if you weren't talking, well, they wouldn't be able to recognize the wisdom because it would not be output. So it's all about output, and it can be output in words or it can be output in actions in different ways that are ultimately expressions of words, our thoughts, to our emotions, to our actions that are output. So it's all ultimately like a manifestation, an expression, a derivative of words, of thoughts and words that are coming out. So I forget where I was going on with this, but this seeing and going forward, and the wisdom is this vision of the future that we can create, because you're outputting into the world to have an influence on the world, to influence people who can hear you, or your actions are going to influence what exists in the world to change it into something that didn't exist, or remove what is existing and to take it out of existence and replace it with something else, ideally. So it's always about what's in the future, and that's why in my early work, I put a lot of emphasis on the future. I'm not much into the time is an illusion, blah, blah stuff. And it's all about the now and be in the present now. My thing was about, we're all working for the future. Everything we do is about, that's where we're going. That's the goal. There's an objective. It's not just about the now. The now is how you get to the future. And you're always in the now. And as soon as you're in the now, it becomes the past. So the now is ever fleeting. You can never be absolutely forever in the now. You have to do things in the now, and you actualize the future that comes, and that's where you're going. You have goals in life. It's not just, I'm gonna eat piss and poop and there's my life. I'm not gonna do anything. I'm just gonna live in the present, and I'm hungry now, so I'm just gonna eat. And I'm this now, and I'm just gonna, no, we have ideas, we have visions, we have imagination. We're striving for things in the future.
That's what consciousness is, being able to become aware of the future, and being able to plan and, predict things and, build things so we can, prep, and, have a better future, you would think. Because, if you was a truly intelligent, species.
Yeah. So that's why in my earlier work, I put emphasis on, we are actually living for the future. We're not living for the now. I'm not saying there's not positive things for well-being and psychology.
Because they can fall into the pleasure trap. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's good aspects to it, but we're not supposed to be stagnant. We're supposed to be trying to better ourselves. So that's what my presentation on being and becoming was about, was your current state of being, and then what can you become? And then you actualize yourself towards that potential. So it's not just about the now. It's actually more about a vision of the future. And in the now, you're trying to change what's now to become that ideal that you envision for what the future can be.
Growth. Yeah. Yeah.
And when you said the consciousness, reminded me another thing I talked about in my earlier work. These two Greek terms called synderesis or synteresis and synidesis. Yeah. And one, syn is with or together, like calm, if I'm not mistaken. And deresis, teresis, I forget which one's the past or the future. And then Idenai was the root for synidesis, and it has to know. So I'm just going to talk about the concepts. I don't remember. I always forget which one's the past and which one's the future. So one is about knowledge of the past, so you can guard against. I think it's synteresis. Synderesis was the guard. That's to guard. So with knowledge of the past, you can, or that's the future. Yeah, you can guard against the future outcome. That's what it was. Yeah. So the two work together, as you gain knowledge of the past in order to guard and protect yourself towards the future. So you can plan for the future. So you can be aware of what outcomes may come and choose the right path instead of the wrong. You can guard against the wrong path. It has to do with morality. You learn from your mistakes of the past so you can make better choices in the future. You get to guard and protect yourself as you walk through life, going towards the future, living for the future. You're learning from past mistakes.
Yep.
If you're moderately intelligent and if you're wise, then you're going to learn from the mistakes of others so you don't have to do them yourself. And then you can choose different choices based on learning from the past. So that's this powerful notion of synthesis and syntheresis that I don't know if anyone else has talked about it, but that's how I joined it. I don't remember how I got onto synthesis and syntheresis in my earlier work, but I found those two terms and I was like, wow, look at these two. You join them together and this is the story it tells.
Yeah, because, I mean, you ask anybody, like, hey, man, on an individual level, if you're doing the same things over and over and you're not learning from no mistakes, is that true intelligence? I think most people might know that's a fucking dumbass. That's a fool. So then, okay, like, apply that to what humanity's doing. We're still doing the same mistakes fucking over and over and we're not learning from them. Well, then there's no growth and that means we're a fool. But yeah,
exactly. That makes you a fool. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to end it there. And thank you for coming by, Brandon, as usual. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. And I'll end in, as I say, the immortal words of Mark Passio. And I found another clip related to the great work, which this one's more inspiring than inspiring combined with scathing to get you, give you a kick in the ass. This one's more of the inspiring without
it's
the
less
kick in the ass part.
vitriolic. Yeah, less vitriolic.
It's less vitriolic. It's inspiring. We'll say that. So I'll play the other three and then I'll play the last one and we can comment on it. So here we go.
How about trying to get out there and do the actual great work so this world isn't such a fucking hellhole, huh? How about getting involved in the effort to free every fucking body because we're fucking enslaved, loser? The whole point is to make new teachers who do fully understand these dynamics so that we can cause a chorus of resounding truth throughout the earth. The laws of nature, the knowledge of the difference between right and wrong, that constitutes, the people who know that constitute a family. They constitute a dynamic, interacting group of individuals who are working to change consciousness on earth. They're doing the great work. They are the true workers that are performing the great work here on earth to end slavery.
There you go. So join the family of great workers, even if we don't actually know each other, or we never heard of each other, or we don't talk to each other. You're still part of the family if you're doing the great work. So that was the one I found that I added. It's inspiring,
Yeah. It is inspiring, join the family.
Yeah. So, I guess we'll be back the 18th of March, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, thanks everyone. Hope you gained something of value. Take care.